Crash Bandicoot. You know what's funny? If you were to ask me who I'd like for Smash a few years ago, Crash Bandicoot probably wouldn't come to mind. However, thanks to his magnificent return to glory, this beloved Bandicoot won my heart once again and convinced me that he'd be brilliant for Smash, especially now that he's finally made it to the Switch. Crash's history with Nintendo and status in the late 90s is something no gamer of that era can forget, and the wacky, almost Warner Bros. Style of his franchise is practically begging to be instigated into Smash Bros. Having stages that pull elements from his games for background details or as hazards, having lots of fun and funky songs adding to the pandemonium, assist trophies that come in all shapes and sizes, plus seeing Cash Panuka alongside Mario, Sonic and everyone else, it just feels right. Once he warps into the ring, I would personally suggest for him to follow the example set by other third-party fighters like the Blue Bomber and Pac-Man. In this case, how most if not all of their attacks are one-for-one, or close to it, taken directly from their source material. For the standard stuff, I feel it's best to go with something basic and use the Titan series for inspiration, as in those games Crash had actual punches and kicks that would work just fine with both regular and smash attacks. There's always the possibility to throw in some more classic moves like the Coco leg sweep and the slide, all of which is fine and dandy, but the special moves is where the nostalgia goggles come into play. Right off the bat, there's the Fruit Bazooka giving him a ranged attack, the iconic spin attack which would function in the same vein as Rob's and can be extended into the Death Tornado Spin for both extra attack time and recovery distance, carrying out the belly flop which normally has him jump up and smash down like the Koopa King, but if used in the air it transforms into the Super Belly Flop for extra damage, riding one of his animal, friends across the arena, making use out of the various machines he's piloted over the years, his recovery taking the form of the Crash Copter, and to finish things off, for his final smash he returns invincible with that sweet tribal music. Gets in the says they're not ripping off aliens, but they're ripping off aliens machine, or having Coco join in for a crazy double team attack. Using this premise in my eyes would make Crash a very well-rounded and versatile character much like Mario, but the attention to detail that went into his moveset would be the perfect form of fan service, so much so that I just want to get up and dance. Dixie Kong. The Donkey Kong series has always been one of Nintendo's slightly more well-known franchises, and yet only the Big Ape and Diddy Kong made it into Smash. Well, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think it's time to bust open another DK barrel, with Dixie Kong as the perfect primate I have in mind. I mean, it's either her or Cranky Kong, and well, I'm not feeling him. When looking at Dixie Kong's history of debuting in arguably the best Donkey Kong game to date, going on to be the star of the next game, and is my go-to girl for Tropical Freeze, it goes without saying that she's earned the right to join the battle. Plus, Smash Bros is no stranger to having an abundance of femme fatales, so what's the harm in one more? When deliberating over how Dixie Kong should perform, I came to a rather peculiar conclusion, as I felt she could prevail in air combat considering how she makes most platforming challenges a joke, and to that extent I felt one of the biggest themes around her playstyle could be momentum. I first want to put it out there that like with Shantae, I maintain that using her hair for most of her attacks just feels right, considering how versatile it is in the DKC games and could conversely make her a very flexible fighter. Once again, I refer you to Miller Rage from Guilty Gear. Moving on, I personally would design her ground attacks to focus not so much on damage output and dealing multiple hits, instead having very distinctive arcs and significant knockback for lifting her enemies into the air, allowing players to make use of her aerial attacks that not only have large hitboxes but also heavily influence Dixie Kong's positioning, which can be utilized for both recovery and to continually pressure her opponents. Her special attacks can furthermore act as a way to keep her enemies off the ground. For example, she can similarly leap forward like Diddy Kong, instead bouncing off players and sending both of them into the air where she has the advantage, using her hair as a counter of sorts, where she lays it down flat and upon impact flicks the opponent up into the sky, picking up or catching items and projectiles to then throw them back at the enemy, having some of the more unorthodox moves like a bubblegum pop gun to stick players in place, and then using a spiral-like jump into the air which then turns into the iconic helicopter spin, slamming her hair on the ground to trip up foes within her range, and to top it all off for her final smash, she has all the animal bodies bombard the screen in an onslaught of fur and feathers. This playstyle I figure can make Dixie Kong a great fighter that really punishes reckless players, but would also have some drawbacks like certain attacks leaving her very open. But regardless, I think Smash Bros can do better than just Donkey Kong and his sidekick. Surely there's room for one more member of the DK crew? Travis Touchdown. What's usually the first thing that comes to mind when the subject of third-party Wii games arises, aside from a steaming pile of shit? For those who actually got to play the good games, it's probably either Zack and Wiki, some super obscure game even I haven't heard of, what in the fuck is a Dokapon? Or No More Heroes. And on that note, I think the tenacious Travis touchdown deserves a shot at Smash, and so does Suda51. Though if he does get in, they're gonna have to tone down his attitude. God knows what would happen if he got a glimpse of Samus. Oh yeah! On the surface, Travis doesn't seem like the right kind of guy for Smash Bros, since his games are very out there. But I don't think anyone could deny just how much style and charm this loser otaku and the world he lives in has to offer. So obtaining him along with other ranked assassins to fight in conjunction with stages set within Sand to Destroy and songs like Philistine is a surefire recipe for success. It goes without saying that Travis will be bringing his beam katana Tsubaki to the battle, and thus permitting him to function similarly to Shulk I think is a safe place to begin. However, combining his particular style of swordplay mixed with wrestling moves puts less focus on coverage and spacing, but rather very forceful, fast-hitting attacks to rack up the damage, and then finishing off with smash attacks that are based on his finishes, with that killing sound added for good measure. Delicious! For his special attacks, that could go one of two ways. They either A, make them some sort of specific katana swing like hitting back projectiles, a counter move, a charge slash and so on, basing them off his slot rail special moves like shooting fireballs, riding his motorbike, sending a tiger out to attack, having him charge his katana like Cloud and then once full it gives him an attack boost, etc. This to me is a good place to start, but I'm eager to get some more ideas from the Monado boy by taking the concept of the Monado arts and applying it to Travis's beam katanas. Allowing Travis to switch between different weapons could change his battle properties and playstyle, with his Tsubaki Mark III increasing his speed and jumping but lowering his damage and defense, his Red Peony extending his reach and damage output but lowering his speed and gimping his recovery, and finally the Rose Nasty amassing how many hits he deals on certain moves and some new attack animations, but having the shortest range and least amount of knockback, and for his final smash he either calls in Henry and Shinobu for an ultimate attack, or goes full on anime and pulls out the giant fucking robot. I think this would be a great way to make the player feel right at home controlling Travis and encourage them to experiment often, and if the player is able to push Travis to the best of his abilities, they'll be at the number one spot in no time. The Blazing Sword Trio. Does everyone remember the Pokemon trainer from Brawl? Yeah, he was awesome, right? Being able to switch between 3 different fighters was great! Well, what say we bring this concept back with the 3 heroes of Fire Emblem Blazing Sword? The Lords Lyn, Eliwood and Hector are of great significance in relation to the franchise's history, as their game was the first one to be released in the West and is the best-selling pre-Awakening Fire Emblem game, so to me, their legacy has more than earned them the right to join the fight, even if many people don't acknowledge poor Eliwood. The notion of having these 3 be interchangeable is in my opinion the best way to implement them into Smash, and allows for 3 competitors for the price of 1. And for the record, I would personally have it so that pressing 2 face buttons switches them out much like a Marvel vs game. With that said, let's break down their potential moveset starting with Lyn, who I foresee being the frailest and weakest of the 3, but also the fastest and having the best combo potential. Lyn I figure would focus on quick strikes and hit and run attacks, with her moves coming out fast and ideal for racking up damage. In addition, she would more than likely be utilizing many after image strikes for her specials, which would be ideal for catching her foes off guard as well as a rather effective safety net when backed into a corner. So think of her as a fusion of Meta Knight and Greninja, or as I like to call it, top tier. For Eliwood, it goes without saying that he should be the middle ground in terms of speed and power, and if at all possible, draw inspiration from the Mii sword fighter by giving him many fancy stabbing attacks. By focusing on straightforward lunges, Eliwood could not only have a good amount of reach, but also travel quite a distance when attacking, giving him an effective amount of range, spacing tools, air game, and edge guarding, though at the same time, opponents that approach from above or below would be at a considerable advantage. Rounding him out, his special attacks could add that ounce of spice like throwing javelins, riding his horse across the arena, holding his sword to the heavens for a short power boost, spinning to rundle around to attack like a razor blade or to reflect projectiles, plunging his rapier deep into his opponent at which point he shoves them away and gains extra height and so on. And finally, there's Hector the Rector, who would naturally be the powerhouse of the team, being all about brute force and defense with attacks that grant super armor, while correspondingly being very slow and clunky. Primarily, Hector will be fighting with his axe and have large swinging arcs that give him a fair amount of coverage on both the ground and in the air, but I would throw a few punches in there for good measure, and his special attacks would also be axe focused with unique properties, for example throwing a hand axe for ranged attacks, dragging his wolf bale across the ground executing a powerful sweeping motion, having him perform the Hector helicopter in order to push players back if they get too close, and topping it off with his iconic jump into the air, only to have him come crashing down. and their final smash has all 3 lords use their legendary criticals at the same time. Hopefully this will be a way to bring all 3 lords into Smash, and I think it will be refreshing to have 3 new Fire Emblem faces that are both unique and bring back one of the best ideas Smash Bros ever came up with. I think they've waited at the Dragon's Gate long enough. Simon Belmont. The NES was a place where many franchises set forth their humble beginnings, and 2 of the biggest third-party names of that era were Mega Man and Castlevania. So of course I'd like the resident vampire killer Simon Belmont to be the third-party character to make it into Smash above all others. Just think about it. The moveset, the outfits, the music, the stages, the assist trophies, the items, the amount of source material there is to pull from. Oh god, I'm getting excited just thinking about it. And though many other Castlevania protagonists have come along over the years, I still think the OG Vampire Hunter is the only one truly worthy of this honor due to his history with Nintendo, even if some of it is...
This time going out with a bang, not a whimper.
Questionable. The very second Simon steps onto the stage, I can instantly picture him using moves in the same vein as Zero Suit Samus and another Konami character, Solid Snake. Zero Suit because, well, it's fairly obvious. And Snake due to how he was built around having very strong punches and kicks and an emphasis on projectiles for his special attacks. For all the stuff assigned to the A button, I would like Simon to employ a mixture of hand-to-hand combat and whip attacks to deal damage at varying distances both on the ground and in the air, with his smash attacks also being whip-based. Much like with Mega Man, it would seem fitting that most if not all of Simon's attacks were copied from the various different Castlevania games, which I think is a good thing, but for a fighting game, I deliberate that the Lords of Shadow series should take the precedent in order to base them around those fancy schmancy combos. You could even use moves from Castlevania Judgment, if you want to. Of course, I couldn't forget about the good old sub-weapons, as those would be assigned to the special attacks. Throwing the axe in its signature arc for hitting airborne opponents, sending forth the cross to function like a boomerang, dropping the holy water to travel across the ground and leave a burning trail like arc fire, quickly throwing out knives for chip damage, speaking the word of the Lord and having the Bible travel in a particular pattern to catch players off guard, and finally having some Richter Belmont style super moves to gain some serious distance, with his final smash being the partners from Castlevania 3 or a barrage of item crashes that would make the sacred treasures look like a baby's toy. This not only enables Simon to be an incredibly versatile fighter, but also makes the connection to his roots all the more meaningful and demonstrate why Castlevania is such a momentous franchise. Well, was, fuckers. But I think the best part of having Simon in Smash is all the Castlevania greatness that comes with him. The stages, the trophies, the bosses, the alternate skins, and of course, the music! Yeah, you know you want it. King K. Rool. Now it's time to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, or crown in this case, as putting King K. Rool into Smash I contend to be a genius way to bring in more villains and Donkey Kong raps at the same time, but to also have what I conceive to be one of the zaniest and kookiest fighters in Smash that would be a literal blast to play as. The Big Ape's main nemesis is one of the more famous Nintendo villains out there, and though he's been absent very recently, for some reason, I feel his reputation is more than enough reason to bring him into Smash, and a perfect excuse for him to get off his ass and back into the game. Wearing his skin once again really doesn't cut it, though it is very comfortable. One of the most notable things about the Kremlin King is that despite being a fat fuck, he's surprisingly nimble and has a huge arsenal up his, well, arse. So if possible, he could be a very unique heavyweight character that both hits hard and can lay the smack down in a variety of ways. Due to how his boss battles go down, I think K. Rool's standard and smash attacks would be very chaotic in nature, either causing him to travel a significant distance or be rather uncanny and difficult to read, allowing him to confuse his opponents and sucker punch them when they're not looking. Very fitting now that I think about it. Once he busts open those special moves, then things get a bit more interesting. I mean, he's got to have the crown attack that comes back like a boomerang, charging across the screen with his blunderbuss similar to Bowser Jr., firing shots from said blunderbuss and randomly dispersing a variety of cannonballs. Funny. Taking a giant leap in whatever direction and stomping any opponent unfortunate enough to be below him 6 feet under, and so on. As for his final smash, well, he could either have cannonballs rain from the sky, put on that lab coat and bring forth the lightning, or perhaps he takes his unfortunate victims into the ring and puts up the old fisticuffs. Going off the examples I've given paints King K. Rool out to be very similar to King Dedede, a very slow and clumsy fighter, but with a wide range of attacks and a lot of power behind them, not to mention in this case being rather speedy to boot, but also highly prone to suicide if you're not careful, making for such a silly character that's a lot of fun to mess around with, but also rather deceiving in just how potent he can be in the right hands, and would be an absolutely glorious return for the King of Green. So, who on earth could be my number one choice for Smash Bros. Switch? Who out of the entire history of Nintendo is worth standing above all the others that no one else compares to? My number one pick is Ridley. Yes, Ridley is the character I want in Smash Bros. Switch above all others. And I don't care about the 50,000 plus reasons as to why Ridley can't be in the game. Where do I begin when it comes to why I want Ridley in Smash Bros. So much? He's the main villain of Metroid and appears in the majority of the games, including the most recent entry. He's been featured in every Smash Bros. Game, got 2 boss fights in Brawl, is both a villain and large fighter, both of which Smash needs more of, and just look at this Project M mod, what else is there for me to say? Simply put, there is no one I would want to play as more in Smash than Ridley. What about Sumiya? Can I get back to you on that? When it comes to debriefing his options for combat, if the games are anything to go off, then he would be very fast and very strong, though to balance this out, he would have poor defense and because of his size, an easy target. Therefore, using Charizard as a base I believe is ideal due to their similar physiology, or instead the Project M mod for a more accurate depiction. For ground combat, I can foresee Ridley using many claw swipes, fire breath and tail attacks, which though not too powerful, act as a way of keeping his opponents at bay, and in close quarters Ridley would be at a severe disadvantage due to his poor defense and size, so using these as spacing tools will help to cover his weaknesses, but still have considerable risk for careless players. The same goes for his smash attacks, which would have good reach and power, but also really bad wind up or cooldown. Though it may seem strange that this version of Ridley's attacks come off as weak given his aggressive, almost savage nature, the reason for this is that a YouTuber by the name of WeDude83 Rebuff came up with a brilliant idea that I think is fantastic for Ridley, where he works like a reverse Little Mac, where on the ground he really isn't much, but in the air, he's an absolute monster! Once he takes to the skies, that's where this space pirate general can really spread his wings, as not only would these attacks be faster, stronger and leave less openings, but thanks to his size and other physical traits, he would be the king of juggling his opponents and placing pressure on his enemies. Naturally, Ridley would still use many claw swipes and tail attacks, but now he would put his wings to good use to act as attacks with very large hitboxes, as well as a third, perhaps even fourth jump, or heck, allow him to slow his descent. Moving on to special attacks, this could be very interesting, in the sense that their properties may change depending on whether or not Ridley is airborne. For example, on the ground he would shoot a single fireball, but in the air he shoots a barrage of them. Ridley could perform a slow charge attack like in Prime, but while airborne, it's a super quick dash that is great for recovery or surprise attacks. He could jump into the air and then after a while come back down creating a shockwave. However, if he's already in the sky, then he drops straight away with more force and a bigger blast radius. Having him reel back then hurling himself towards his foes, grabbing them and throwing them behind him, with the air version having him doing the same thing, but whilst in his grasp biting or crushing them for extra damage, arcing his tail and planting it into his opponents to stun them, but while in the sky the tail creates a small earthquake that travels across the ground, and finally for his recovery, he uses his wings to give him a big leap off the ground. But if he's already flying, then if the opponent gets hit by either wing while underneath him, it acts as a spike and gives him a one-way ticket to hell. And to bring it all home for his final smash, he transforms into Meta or Omega Ridley for a temporary super boost, or instead flies off the stage and then comes around the back and smashes into his unfortunate victims. If this breakdown about Ridley's combat performance isn't enough to demonstrate how much I want him in Smash, then honestly, I don't know what is, as I really think he's able to bring something new to the table and acts as one of the most risk versus reward fighters in the game, in addition to further representing both the dark side of Nintendo and one of the greatest series the company has created, not to mention being my favourite Nintendo villain and having some of my favourite boss fights in the history of video games, which is why he takes the number one spot as the character I would love to see above all others in Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo Switch. This has been Blazing Knight. I wish you all a great night, take care, and as wonderful as Super Smash Bros. Is, one of the best parts about it is all the hype and speculation surrounding the release, wanting to know what the new modes, stages, features and fighters will be heading our way, and if even one of the combatants I've mentioned makes it into the game, at that point, Nintendo just has to shut up and take my money. Thank you all for watching today, I hope you had a great time and enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments and what are some of the characters that you would love to see in Super Smash Bros. Switch. Also, please remember to like, comment, share and subscribe and click the little bell to keep notified about all the new videos that are coming out. I'd like to take this time to say a huge thank you to all my patrons that help support the channel and make these videos possible. Thank you all so much for your constant love and support. And shoutouts go to Chaos Saberlai, Justin Konovich, Samuel Line, Nate Perkins, Vanessa Westfall, Petanko Fan 32, Tivis James Little 4, Almond, Vinton Clark, Jeremy Redinger, Midnight Castle, Maggie Fall, The Main Idea, Perfect Oblivion, Verolinate392, and Zenny Dragon. Once again, thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, please consider donating to my Patreon to help support and improve the channel, along with getting some very nice bonuses I hope will be worth your much appreciated investment. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time.